welcome to this episode of Class is in Session. I'm your host, Ashley Stevens, and this show highlights the latest happenings inside HBCU classrooms, public policy issues facing these historic institutions, the business side of HBCU sports, and we also shine a light on HBC leaders, students, and alum who are making major moves, especially in business and the arts. And our featured guest today is doing just that. Professor Avery O. Williams is a screenwriter and director. He's an MFA graduate from the Tisch School of Arts at NYU. He's worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. So today we're here to discuss his newest film, Abducted at an HBCU, a Black girl missing story, which recently premiered on Lifetime, starring Naturi Naughton, Tanyell, Mark Hood. It's directed by Delmar Washington and executive produced by Garcelle Beauvais. This is a really interesting piece that shines a light on missing Black girls and young women. And we're going to get into that discussion and also how his own HBCU, Morehouse College, where he's an alum and currently a professor, helped shape his career in the film industry. Hello and welcome, Professor Williams.
Ashley, thank you. And thank you for that wonderful welcome and introduction. Perfect. I love it.
Listen, we're glad to have you. Honestly, we're glad to have you. I had been seeing, some women are Lifetime junkies, me being admittedly one of them. And I had been seeing advertisements in mid to late June for this movie that was coming out. And I said, wow, this is really interesting. And, because I follow HBCUs, I saw a post on Morehouse's page. And there you were, camera crew set up, you all were filming on location. I was like, no way. And it said that you were the screenwriter for this film. So tell us about your involvement with this film, Abducted at an HBCU.
Well, first of all, I'm very blessed and grateful to be on your show. Any sort of conversation concerning HBCUs and movies, I'm all in. That's my thing. So we're right in line with that. But anyway, Abducted from an HBCU is an original Lifetime movie that was shot this summer. And if you know anything about Lifetime, they move fast. And so there was an exec at Lifetime who reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you have any ideas on, concerning for a Lifetime movie following the track of one of their films they did last year?" And that was called Black Girl Missing. That was also directed by Delmar Washington, and it's starring Garcelle Beauvais. And so I said, yeah, I have an idea. And so I drafted up the idea. I submitted to her. Lifetime read it, loved it. And then I worked with some amazing producers that they had, and we put it quickly on the fast track to write. And it was a story of a young girl that is one of these young ladies that you may not notice on campus much. She's not a campus queen. She's not in a sorority. She doesn't have a lot of friends, but she is prey to some of these guys that run a sex trafficking business in the city. And so she gets snatched by that. But the beauty of it is not about her being snatched or about what happens to her. The beauty is about the fact that there was somebody at the school who paid attention to her. Yeah. And I think that's one of when I say beauty, that's one of the strengths of an HBCU is that its faculty, and I totally feel this way, pay strict attention to its students or her students, and meaning that our student to teacher ratio was very small, but the sense of sort of care and concern about each one of our students is inherent in all of our schools. And so as such, this one counselor, advisor pays attention to her, and that's played by Naturi Naughton, knows that this girl is gone and goes on a search for her to find her. So that's the story.
Very interesting. And like you said, the nurturing environment, as you mentioned, of HBCUs allowed for one woman to say something's not right. One of my students has not been seen. You know what, Avery? Let's allow our viewers to take a look at the trailer for Abducted from an HBCU.
Let's do it.
I'm an advisor. You are one of my students. Transferring mid-semester to a top HBCU. You are a fighter.
My fight is money.
Lifetime original movie ripped from the headlines.
I can tell that you feel invisible on this campus, but this college takes care of its students.
Yo, you wanna ride?
No, I'm good.
Inspired by actual stories.
Police department, how may I direct your call?
I'd like to report a missing person.
From executive producer Garcelle Beauvais,
I want to go home.
This is home.
Naturi Naughton,
Clearly, these girls are being victimized. Don't you even care?
A student disappearing off campus is not a crime.
I can't save every girl.
I'm not trying to save every girl.
Wakey.
I'm trying to save one.
Abducted at an HBCU, a black girl missing movie. Part of Truly Unbelievable Movies, a ripped from the headlines event, only on Lifetime.
Wow. Avery, I have the trailer is telling. That's only one piece, but I encourage folks to see the entire movie as I've done. And by the very end, I absolutely had tears in my eyes. And it is because of the fact that you mentioned a black woman noticed that another young black woman was nowhere to be found. And it was her persistence to say something's not right. And the fact that she was dismissed, looked over, campus police, local police, everywhere she went to advocate for this young lady, no one seemed to put it on their priority list. How did the idea for this story and this storyline come about?
Well, like I said, part of it stemmed from the whole issue of a black girl missing, and that was a Lifetime story that they initiated last year with the title "Black Girl Missing," and so the whole idea of it being on a campus on an HBCU came about because I've been working there at Morehouse for the past 10 years. In fact, I went to school there, so it's an environment that I know very well, at first as a student and then now as a faculty member. And let me just say that a campus like that is rich with stories. There are the stories about faculty, the stories about administration, and the stories about students, and all of these things happen all of the time. There's a plethora of great just great story material in an HBCU, and it's not always just about the drumming or the stepping or any of the things that you just might just cliched associations with the school, but rather the stories of humanity and the stories of people working together to create a common good. If you've never visited an HBCU, if you've never had a chance to descend on the campus, I encourage everybody to at least do so, and you'll get a sense of what a unique college experience is, and so as such, the story stemmed from that.
Got it. Well, it's important, honestly, that you did highlight it for sure. And I like the fact that even in the film, Naturi Naughton's character, even in her search and her quest for this missing HBCU student, she even cites statistics about, how often Black girls and young Black women go under the radar for people to look for them when they're missing. And I thought that was important to put a real life perspective on the fact that this is an issue. And the film really shows the horrors of trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking. It was a lot at times, but because it broke your heart because you know that it's real. You know that these stories are unfortunately real.
Yeah, unfortunately, and part of this, there were a few stories that in my research that I had uncovered that were very similar to this. But I had one that was very close to my heart. One of my best friends, his niece came to a local HBCU, Clarkland University, and in her freshman year, she fell in love with this guy who was not even a student. Fell in love with him, and this dude was just sucked her in, buying her gifts and taking her out to restaurants. And look, I don't want to darken the story, but just to tell the truth, but he ended up giving her AIDS, right? And then she dropped out of school, and then she wouldn't take her medicine, and within a few years, this poor young woman died. Can I blame it on this young man? Yeah, I think so. Our whole family looked at it and said that if she had not been drawn into him, if she had not been drawn out of school and into him, then I think she would have been living to this day. So these are very the story is true in so many ways that there are predators out there. And we have to look out for our young women and our young men with regard to that. And so it is a cautionary tale in a lot of ways.
No, thank you for sharing that. That is very, very unfortunate to hear. And again, it shines light on the fact that these stories are real. They are happening in real time to real people and real people that we know on colleges. And even I've heard, as young as high school, this happening to young people. Tell us what's been the feedback and response to the movie so far.
You know what? It's actually been quite amazing. What's nice about it. Well, not nice. Let me just say that in a sense, as we talk about the issue, it sounds like a message movie, and it is. It's a movie that delivers a message, but also the feedback is that it's also it's a good movie, in terms of a story being brought in. And I'll tell you one thing, I didn't know how many Lifetime fans there are out there. I thought my mama was the only one that watched Lifetime. But I'm hearing from my family and my colleagues, like, oh yeah, I watch Lifetime. Matter of fact, I had an old friend of mine say they just turned it on and just happened to see my name in the credits. Were like, oh my gosh. And this is the friend I hadn't talked with in years. So the response has been really nice, and Lifetime creates a particular type of movie. So you have to sort of also go into the mindset of saying that I know what to expect. I know this is a Lifetime movie, but I think the biggest compliment is that people said this is better than the regular Lifetime movie, so. It's been good.
And kudos to you, one, on it receiving positive reviews and you having the partnership for it to air on Lifetime. Where can folks watch the film? If they didn't see the premiere, where can they find it?
Well, Lifetime I think they're streaming it for free all the way there until August 22nd. So you can go on to the Lifetime channel, or the Lifetime app is another one that I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't even know there was a Lifetime app. So you go on there and it's like trending like number 2 or 3 on the Lifetime app right now. And so that's a great way to see it. But also, if you're just one of these people, I like to see mine through Amazon Prime, you could do it there. It's on Amazon Prime, so they have a partnership with that. So it's the question is just do a little research and find it. My mama found it. She keeps finding it over and over again. She's the one that keeps me posted. That my mother, Laura Ann, who lives in Chicago, I have to give her a quick shout out, because she has been let me tell you about my mother. I have to just brag about it. My mother was so proud of the movie and the fact that I was involved. My mother actually printed out flyers, old school flyers, right? And went to her church and was passing it out. Check out this movie. Check out this movie. So shout out to Laura Ann Bibbs. That's my mother in Chicago.
I love that. Yeah. Shout out to your mother, Miss Laura Ann, and her support. Because listen, that support is sometimes what carries us through. And it's terrified for you to see that you were literally walking in your gift. Let's go all the way back to Miss Laura Ann and go back to the beginning. Avery, tell us about where you're from, how you developed an interest in writing and screenwriting, and then ultimately how you chose Morehouse, your HBCU.
Sure, it's an interesting trip. So I'm originally from Chicago, and I think I became interested in movies because basically I had a mother who watched movies. Turner Classic Movie is her station, besides Lifetime, that's her station. So she always interested me in that. And I was actually, I was raised Catholic. I was in the seminary. I was going to be a priest at one point. And when I decided that was not what I wanted to do, I decided that because I was influenced by a guy named Lerone Bennett Jr. Lerone Bennett used to be the publisher of one of the senior editors of Ebony magazine. All right. And so his son had gone to Morehouse, and then his son came back to Chicago and was talking all about this and everything. I was like, wow, I think that's something I want to do since I wasn't going to be a priest. So I went down south, and then I attended Morehouse College, where I became a member of the Morehouse College Glee Club. I eventually pledged a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Then after that, I went on to grad school not long after Morehouse, and grad school was Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. But what influenced me, though, here's what's interesting. I was actually on my route to law school right after Morehouse because I majored in English. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So I majored in English. I was on my route to law school. But then Spike Lee had come out with School Day, She's Gotta Have It, and then School Days. And then I read Spike's book, called Spike Lee's Gotta Have It. It's his diary of him making that first movie. And what that did for me, Ashley, that showed me that Hollywood was not this sort of quintessential magical place way away, but rather Hollywood is what you can create right here. And I saw and I read what Spike had done, and that solely influenced me. And so as such, I basically left the law school and applied to film school. And I applied to NYU because Spike had gone there. And I didn't have any money to go all the way to California. So I was like, okay. And so I was very blessed. They had over 400 applicants that year, and they only accepted 20 people in the program. And I was one of the 20. And I said, look at God. All right. So I slept on a guy's couch until I found a room there in New York. And then my career just turned around. And when I got to NYU, I was even further blessed. Around my senior year, a buddy of mine, Adisa Septuri is his name, came to me and said, hey, man, I have an idea for a film. No, do you have an idea for a film? And I said, yeah, I do, because he needed a thesis film. And so we wrote and produced a film that, and I'm just going to fast forward the story, that eventually was funded by Hollywood Pictures, that basically Disney funded our student film. It's called Notes in a Minor Key, starring Keith David and Harry Lennox. And it went on to get us written up in the New York Times, LA Times, and Variety. And, we became the flavor of the weekend for this film, Notes in a Minor Key. And so that's since launched my career. And then after that, instead of going to Hollywood, I made an interesting turn, Ash. I did not go to start to write movies. I actually went and did into the play world. So I did those what we call gospel plays that, that Tyler Perry basically comes from. And I did that for many years, and Raven Simone and Howard Hewitt are some of the people who were in my plays. But then after a while, that sort of I got burned out with that until a guy had written a screenplay for it while in college, or I'm sorry, in NYU, called me and he said, hey man, he said, get off that Chitlin circuit. That's what he called it. Get off that Chitlin circuit and get back to what you're supposed to be doing. That's writing these movies. And that guy was Heavy D. And when I said, Hev, but I don't know anybody in Hollywood anymore. I've been away, out of the mix for me. I've been doing this theater. And Hev said, don't worry, I got you. And the first person Hev hooked me up was Master P. And Master P had an idea for a TV show, and I wrote that, and then it was Damon Dash, and then it was on to Erica Alexander and Nia Long, and then who else? And and then of course, then the great Wendy with Carol Robinson, so I'm writing for these folks while out in Hollywood, and it was just a beautiful thing that Heavy started with me on, and I wrote with him also. And then the writer's strike hit in 2008, and then I was suddenly out of work again. So then I jumped into reality TV. A wonderful producer named Ashley Ballman. She's Ashley Ballman Sylvester now. She hired me to do my first reality TV job, and that was on Hell Date, then Keisha Cole, The Way It Is, and then a bunch of other shows that DuBose Entertainment did for BET. And then that's when Morehouse said, hey, look, you're doing all this stuff. We're starting a film program. Would you be interested in sitting on the advisory board? And I said, sure. I sit on the advisory board of my HBC, of my alma mater. So I sat on the advisory board for a year, worked with some amazing people, David Wall-Rice, and then of course the great Dr. Stephanie Dunn, who eventually has become the chair of the Cinema, Television, and Emerging Media Studies program at Morehouse. And so with us, we said, then the dean said, hey, look, are you interested in teaching? Now, actually, I'd always thought I would teach, but I thought it would be like in the winter of my years, not like in the mid-fall, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, so I was like, sure, I will, I'll be happy to teach. And then, so it was launched, the Cinema, Television, and Emerging Media Studies department at Morehouse College. That features some amazing people, including Dr. Stephanie Dunn, like I mentioned, and Kevin Hooks, and who else, and a bunch of other luminaries. I'm bad with names sometimes. I just forget all the names. But these people have taught and teach in this program. It's become a very robust program in film, such that we were listed in the RAP's top 50 film schools last year, and we were the only HBCU listed. And then prior to that was in Variety that we were listed there. So we're doing some good things. Even this year we have a guy named Brandon Schultz, who is the son of the great director Michael Schultz, is going to be teaching a course. And Brandon is one of the writers on Star Trek Discovery. And we've had Hannah Beachler, who was the production designer for Black Panther and Fruitvale Station. And I wish I just had a list of all the names of people that come through, because these HBCUs become wonderful magnets and a nucleus for just great talent. And so we like to think at Morehouse that we definitely are one of those places that brings just Julie Dash taught with us. Julie Dash, you might know her from Daughters of the Dust, another great professor that came through our program and still continues to work with us. So anyway, I could go on, but you have questions. So hopefully I answered some of those in terms of the journey.
Absolutely. No, it's encouraging to hear, right? From, your roots in Chicago, studying English, thinking you were going to go into law. And then you were also inspired by another Morehouse man, Spike Lee, who really, to your point, made Hollywood his own surroundings. To this day, Crooklyn is one of my favorite films because of coming of age, the story that it tells, and it sets all of his films set the tone. Oftentimes, obviously, for New York, but where they are, like you said, that tells the story of that is the Hollywood, right? So I'm glad that you have been able to just grow and pivot into all these amazing ventures, and still all in the film space. You talked a little bit about Morehouse being named to one of the top 50 programs for film. That's phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is the prevalence of film programs at historically Black colleges and universities? And is this something that's growing? Are programs growing stronger and getting more support and visibility and funding?
Yes, I believe that they are. Now, film programs are not easy to, I think, to mount. Now, and the reason being is that typically you would think that it requires a lot of equipment, and in the past it did. And you'll still have universities like one of my other alma maters, NYU, that have more. They'll have more broken equipment than we'll have new equipment, that kind of thing, or vice versa. We'll have, meaning that they just have the stuff, USC has it. So film programs typically require a lot of equipment. But these days, though, with the way technology has created, you can actually shoot a movie, with your phone, you can then edit on your laptop. So it's become more accessible. So as such, film programs, I think, or at least I know, have been growing in schools, and not just HBCUs, but just schools in general. But there's some that have been doing a phenomenal job. But the key always comes to storytelling. I know FAMU has a good program, and that one of the jewels of that program is my frat brother, Will Packer, who has frequently gone back there and given to that. Howard has a strong program. Spelman doesn't have a traditional narrative film program, but they have a strong documentary program. And then Clark Atlanta University has had a program for a while. So HBCUs are really coming into their own with regard to film programs and understanding that it's not just an academic track for you to become a writer, director, or actor, but rather you can enter this multi-billion-dollar industry in a variety of different ways, by coming through a good film program. You can become, I've had one of my former students, Justin Corcoran Browning, who became an agent, a full-fledged agent at CAA that came to the program. We've had David Fortune, who just had a film out and just got $1 million from AT&T to create his film Color Book. These are just a couple of examples, but then you can also move it into becoming a wonderful host like yourself, by coming through a film program, by understanding the necessities of how to tell a story and how to use the tools. And so now these programs they're growing and they're becoming essential parts of a good academic curriculum.
Got it. Got it. I'm glad you mentioned those, and it's glad to hear the success stories and also the other strong programs at other HBCUs. I remember a few years ago, Nate Parker founded a film school at Wiley College as well, and that was a really big deal, for them, and just glad to see the growth and the interest from students as well. We also have highlighted there's an HBCU First Look Film Festival each year, and I think that takes place around November or so. It's a competition for HBCU students. And so we're always glad to shine a light on that and for students to have the opportunity. So, with that, Professor Williams, I'd love to ask, obviously, you're at Morehouse, you're working with students. So one, what were some of the benefits and highlights of being able to film Abducted at an HBCU on your campus at Morehouse?
Well, first of all, yeah, so that's I'm so glad you asked that. First of all, love to the administrators at Morehouse who basically said, they allowed the Lifetime to basically just say, "Hey, look, here's our campus. Do what you do, film what you have to." And what do I mean by that? Lifetime, as a film program, as a film company comes on campus, and they shoot a lot at Morehouse. They give location fees, right? And location fees should be substantial enough to support all of the things necessary, and then for the school to benefit in some way. Now, and this is no slight to the producers of Lifetime, but they didn't have a whole lot of money for location fees, right? They had some, but not a whole lot. Let's be honest. But Morehouse was cool enough to say, because one of our professors is involved in this, we'll work with you all. And they did. And I thought that was beautiful. So what does that mean? So that means that people gave up their offices. The provost was like, "You can shoot in my office." The head of HR, Michael Johnson, said, "Here, take my office." The communications department was open. So Morehouse was very giving because why? It was that sort of, I was a professor. But here's the cool thing, Ash, is that my students were involved in it. My students, Naturi came to one of my classes and talked to my students. One of the producers, Jason Egenberg, came to the class and basically taught a class. Then conversely, the crew was very open to my students coming on set and asking questions and shadowing them. So, they were always just kind of hanging around and listening and learning and watching. And the Lifetime crew was so giving. And the local production crew, hats off to them, R&R Media, they who produced it locally. They allowed every single student to ask any question they want and to be involved in any way that they felt that they could. So students were shadowing, they were PAing, and they were also background actors. So it was really a love fest all the way around, so it worked.
I would actually love to hear that. Filming Abducted at an HBCU literally became an inclusive process to include current students, both on the set, actors, cast, directors in the classroom. It was literally a living lesson for your film students. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome that they got to experience that. Thanks to you. That's really cool.
Well, and it's certainly, and it's highlights. And this is the thing. If there are any school administrators watching this interview, and I really hope they are, I want them to understand that there used to be this ugly phrase that if you can't do, those that can't do teach. Right? Well, we want to flip that around and say that those that teach can do, or whatever, however you want to phrase. In other words, teachers or professors can also teach in the classroom, but also work professionally, and they can work together at the same time. So I was working professionally, but also teaching at the same time. But you have to have an administration that is open to that. Fortunately, we have an amazing administration headed by our President David Thomas, who's leaving, but also our provost Kendrick, who was saying, "Hey, look, yes, do both," because what happens, this film ends up being my work product per se, meaning that instead of where some of my colleagues are writing books or doing research, this is my work product, and so it should go hand in hand with the university. So I encourage all professors in every university, HBCUs, PWIs, whatever it is, to step outside the classroom or bring the classroom into your work, and then conversely do the same thing, if you get my meaning.
Absolutely. 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 Well, Professor Williams, as we wrap up here, again, congratulations to you and the directors, executive producers, and all the phenomenal cast, honestly, on a great film that aired on Lifetime, Abducted at an HBCU, a Black girl missing story. It was really intriguing to watch, and I learned a lot as well. So tell us what's next. What's on the horizon for you, Professor Williams, both in the classroom and on set?
Well, I've been very fortunate. Lifetime tapped me again to write another movie for them. This is based upon a true story of a woman named Laura Cowan, and the traumatic events that happened to her. I don't want to spill too much of it, but this movie is set to air in January of next year. So I'm excited about that. And then also I have in development a movie on Bessie Coleman, and that is, she's the first Black aviatrix, and so this will hopefully be a limited series that we're in development right now on. And the last thing, I have to give a shout out and mention this great, one of my good buddies. He goes by Nephew Tommy. His name is Thomas Miles. Nephew Tommy. Nephew Tommy and I are in we're finishing up a comedy special that he will be launching sometime soon. So keep on the lookout for that. But also this wonderful movie that we're also developing involving a bunch of comedians. And so I don't want to spill the beans on that, but keep your eye open for that dude. He's doing some amazing things, and we're working together. We've been working together for years. So on that front, that's enough.
You're keeping things going. Listen, the moral of this story is Mother Laura Ann is going to have a lot more flyers to print out and pass out at church in the coming months. Right? That's the moral of the story. So
come on now, that's right.
I love it, Professor Avery O. Williams. Thank you so much for being here to share your journey in the film industry as a screenwriter with our audience here at Classes in Session.
And Ashley, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a good talk.
Absolutely. Certainly enjoyed it. And again, for all of those watching, be sure to share this episode with family, friends. For students who may have an interest in going into the film industry or are looking for a film program to study at, consider an HBCU. And also be sure to check out the film Abducted at an HBCU. You definitely don't want to miss this. You definitely don't want to miss it. A Black girl missing story. You can check it out on the Lifetime app. I think he also mentioned Amazon Prime. Just be sure to look for it. Abducted at an HBCU is definitely worth the watch. So again, stay posted for the latest and greatest on all of Black Enterprise's social media channels and on blackenterprise.com. For this episode of Classes in Session, I'm your host, Ashley Stevens, and class is dismissed.